12th of January 2018 on the plateau to the east of Isandlwana camp, which is not visible from our position at this present time. Why we've come here is because of a rather controversial matter regarding where did Charlie Raw and companion discover the Zulu army when they arrived in camp with Anthony Durnford at 10:30 on the morning of the 22nd of January 1879. Most commentaries will tell you they came from a ravine in the NGEWBENI valley. However, after researching the position and after looking at time and distance, etc., and when the camp was finally attacked, and then also having a run from the NGEWBENI valley, which you won't see yet, but it's behind us, we came to the conclusion that the Zulus were in a donga, that is a wadi, which we're going to shortly show you. So to orientate you, if we look further to the left, you'll see there's a herd of cattle. And if we pan to the left, we'll see a rise. You'll see a rise up there. You'll see a couple of pylons on the road, which is a crest, which is on the crest of that rise. And then you'll see the start of a village. Now in that direction is Itusi. And Itusi, as we well know, was one of the lookout posts for the Carbineers on the morning of the 22nd. So they are out of the picture. They can't see what is happening in this particular spot we are now standing in. If we go across to the right, above the cattle, there's a copse of trees there, and you will see on the military maps at the time they marked it with a vedette, but no names are given to the vedette that was on that hill. Earlier we looked from that vedette to this, from the position of that vedette down into the into the source of the NGEWBENI stream, which we'll just have a look at very quickly. We'll pan again from the cattle, and we'll run our eye to the eroded ground that you see in the foreground, in the middle ground. That is really the start of the stream, which later plunges into the NGEWBENI gorge. Now, as you were, Durnford, when he arrived in camp, was told about the presence of Zulus on top of the hill, but there was no confirmation, there was no conclusive reports about what they were doing here. So he sent amongst others a man called Charlie Raw and his partner. Charlie Raw would have ridden up onto the plateau in the gap between the houses that we see on the left. We're panning slowly again to that settlement, and then we go across again to the next high point where you will see yet another copse of trees. He would have come over that. Now in his words, approximately, this is words to the substance and effect. He tells us that he came over a ridge and he saw some Zulus herding cattle ahead of him. So what we have done is we've come up to this ridge where he might possibly have been, and we notice that there is dead ground behind this little ridge which merges, this ridge in the middle ground which merges with the ridge at the back. We maintain that Raw came across that ridge and he rode down this particular slope which descends ever so slightly, and we're panning across into a tributary of the NGEWBENI stream, which now comes into view. And then if we look further to the right, we'll see a herd of cattle. There are buildings in the background, and then the unmistakable gap in the range on the horizon where the NGEWBENI valley picks up speed and flows into the gorge. Commentators will tell you that is from where they emerged. For the reasons that we've given you earlier, the time and distance, and to get to camp in the time that they did, just does not make sense, mathematical sense. Other commentators will tell you that the hill to the right where the aerial currently stands, the Zulus were spotted on the Mbasa, and Raw rode that far ahead and looked over into the ravine on the other side. Now, the point of this is this. You will see, the point of this discussion is this. You will see in the ground in front of us how that suddenly drops into a gully. All right, better word, a donga or a wadi. You'll see where the vehicle stands. Well, you see all that eroded ground. We maintain that Raw, from the ridge which we've shown you earlier, spotted the Zulus herding cattle and running them off towards the Mbasa. And when he reached a spot about 400 yards from where we are standing, he looked down into this gully, which is a steep gully, and to his left in that eroded ground, he saw the Zulus sitting quiet as mice. So you can draw your own conclusion. That gully, when we go to it and film it from a new position, you will see is capable of holding at least 10,000 men, at least. And we maintain that the Zulu army, when they moved into this position, where the vehicle is, to the right of it, there's a vehicle traveling along the road now, from right to left. On the other side is the, let's call it the Nqutu Valley, the position where Whitelaw was earlier with another person not fully identified, but it may have been hey-ho, although that is open to discussion. Using the folds in the ground, which are not visible from the camera now, they filtrated across from right to left. The right horn, which was now on the advance and seen earlier by Barry as it came into view of his position further up the valley that we're panning back up again. They came across to this village that we are now coming into focus, and then you will see further to the left a solitary white house against a red cliff face, and there you will see yet another re-entrant with a hill house in the distance and the Tarantala, one of the peaks of the Tarantala hill, which is above Sarau's stronghold. We maintain they went up that route, and they went around his position, and you'll know that he saw these people early in the morning, and even the night before Zulus had actually moved onto that ridge and were taunting the NNC picket who were with him by telling them what they were going to do to their wives and their sisters on the morrow. So these Zulus were already in position the night before. Sure, they were in all sorts of areas on this plateau, but the main force, that is the chest, we maintain was in the valley that we've just described to you. To further reinforce that point, Evelyn Wood comes out a year later with the Princess Eugenie, and he comes onto this field of fray, and he gets local Zulus, and he takes a military map of the day, and he marks on that position, on that map, the position where he saw the Zulu army, which is plainly on either side and inside that donga, which we pointed out before, are invisible from the pickets behind us. Hence we maintain, and again emphasized by time and distance, the movement, putting a runner on the ground, putting him with impedimenta, running him across this route, that the Zulu army were already out of the NGEWBENI stream proper and dispersed along these little low ridges here and in the dead ground in front of you.
Thank you.
Now that should